At first I thought I was glitching. Just glitches. Because I'm sitting in my kitchen in silence, in my stretchy pajamas, with a mug of coffee that is half of the handle flying off, and I'm still saving it because it's a habit. I'm scrolling through the stories just to occupy my eyes, not my soul. And there they are. My family. All of them. Glowing faces, glasses, china, candles, napkins and rings. And in the very center, pumpkin pie. Our pie. The one we used to bake with Emma every year, arguing over whether or not it was cinnamon. Except Emma's there. I'm not. Not on camera. Not next to me. Not in the captions. Just not there. And in that second, my insides went ice cold. Not because I wasn't invited. It was because I wasn't even surprised. It was like someone poked me in the stomach from the inside and said, "Well, look, this is your truth." And I realized it wasn't the first time. It's just that this time they weren't even faking it. I remembered how last Christmas Aunt Meg had shrugged. "Oh, I thought you were on a trip." Even though I'd written to her, asking what to bring. I remembered my grandmother's birthday party, where I'd brought a cake and it had remained uncut. And Emma's wedding, where I'd been seated next to my ex, and then they'd wondered why I was in a bad mood. Every time, I swallowed it all. I swallowed the pain, the awkwardness, the humiliation. Because it's family. Because if I pretend it's okay, maybe it will be okay. Just today, I suddenly realized that they didn't just forget. They chose. They crossed it out. And they didn't even bother to tell me. Not a phone call. No, Lucy, will you be there? No erroneous email that could have been forgiven. Just the stories. Just pie. Just the hashtag. Hashtag our Thanksgiving. And you know what the worst part is? I didn't even take offense. I started making excuses for them. Automatically. Internally. Maybe they thought I was busy. Maybe they thought I was pulling away on my own. Maybe they just wanted me to be comfortable. Maybe. 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 And then it hit me like a slap on the forehead. Why am I once again looking for excuses for those who betrayed me? Why am I, a grown woman, sitting in my kitchen making up scenarios that are my fault anyway? For what? For not fitting into their comfortable picture? For not pretending like we're okay? For becoming uncomfortable, non-universal, uneven? I turned my phone off, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't text. I didn't make excuses. I didn't reach out. I just sat there and listened to the water drip. And it was louder than all their conversations at the holiday table. I realized it wasn't just that I wasn't invited. I was no longer considered theirs. Or maybe they never did. They just used to pretend better. The next morning, I didn't even look at my phone. I wanted to keep that silence. Not from the world, from them. No random stories, no accidentally missed messages. But it vibrated anyway. The screen lit up. A message from Lauren. We'd barely communicated, but today she sent a screenshot. No words, no explanation. Just an image. I took a closer look. A table, a guest list. The headline was seating. Thanksgiving. And there it is. My name. Crossed out. Next to it. Grace +1. Emma always had that Grace thing going on, with her fake smile and her "you're so self-sufficient" Lucy lines. They didn't just forget to invite me. They wrote me in. And then they crossed me out. Gently. Coldly. No fuss. Without the slightest intention of explaining. I looked at the screen like a document from someone else's life. I wanted to convince myself that it was a mistake. That it wasn't about me. But then came the second message. Voicemail. Erroneous forwarding. I pressed it. Emma's voice. Cheerful, relieved. Well, at least the energy at the table will be lighter this year. And laughter. The kind you get when someone says something nasty but wants to make it sound friendly. Only it wasn't funny.
It was about me.
My energy is what gets in the way. What spoils the atmosphere. What's best left at the door. I put the phone on the table. Something clenched in my chest, but not from tears. It was the realization. They hadn't just not called. They'd discussed it. They'd made a decision. Rejected it. And they didn't even bother to disguise it. I remembered Emma saying a year ago that I was too sensitive. That I took everything personally. That I was, too perceptive. And now I wasn't even given a chance to process anything. Just erased. Silently.
Conveniently.
I slowly walked to the printer, printed out the screenshot, saved the voicemail, sent it to my email. I took the folder where I used to keep my apartment bills and work documents and put the 2 sheets in it. Closed it. I relabeled it. It was now called evidence. Not because I was looking for revenge. It was because I needed a reminder that it wasn't my paranoia, not fiction, not overly sensitive Lucy. It was a fact. I was taken out. And they did it quietly, like I was a piece of furniture that had been moved to the basement to stay out of the way. But I saw the whole thing. And this time, I won't forget. She opened it to a blank page. And at the top I wrote, "Things I've allowed." And it went, a forgotten birthday card. When I was accused of being my own fault for not reminding. Grandma's vacation trip, where I arranged tickets but didn't even go. New Year's Eve, where my name was accidentally left out of the gift draw, and no one noticed. I wrote fast, nonstop. And with each line, it wasn't resentment that grew in me, but something else, a feeling like I was finally back to myself. I didn't want to make a scene.
I didn't want to fight.
But I wasn't going to stay silent anymore either. I closed the notebook, put it next to the folder, and I realized I wasn't interested in their opinion anymore. I'm not going to rub myself in someone else's script, where I'm assigned the role of a little aside. I'm not going to ask for a seat. I'm going to take it, without a scandal.
No yelling. Just the facts.
With the truth. With me. I didn't believe in karma, but today I wished it existed. I was trying to prove to myself that I shouldn't stoop to their level, that I should just leave it at the door and move on. But as I went over everything that had happened over the past few years in my head, I realized I couldn't just stay silent. I can't. I remembered how Emma and I organized my grandmother's 80th birthday party. I spent weeks in preparation. I hired a cafe, I ordered flowers, I made the menu. I arrived at the table with boxes still warm and immortalized the day in a photo. Grandma cried with happiness. And the next morning Emma said to me, "You didn't even leave me a photo for myself. You're trying everything on everyone as usual." I shrugged as if it didn't touch me. I remembered how a few years ago, when Aunt Meg was having financial problems, I had quietly helped with the money. I didn't even expect a thank you. I just did it because it was family. And the next day, Emma came up to me, put her arm around me, and said, "You probably don't even know how hard it was for Meg to take it." And then told everyone that she was always on top of things. I stood up, walked over to the closet, pulled out the box of papers I kept at the bottom, dug out an old photo album. Flipping through the pages, I remembered again how every event in this family ran through me. How I wasn't just a part of it. I was its skeleton, its backbone, but no one wanted to see that. So many times I stood in the shadows, hiding my efforts beneath other people's accomplishments. And every time I said to myself, "Why do I need recognition? All that matters is that I did the right thing." But now it was clear to me. Right for whom? For them? I thought what really mattered was what I cared about, what I did. But it turned out that I was just building them a foundation on which they were standing, and when the moment came, they didn't even thank me. And they continue to build their picture, and I remain invisible, not needed. I went back to the evidence folder. I took the printouts and reread what they had said. You don't have to invest so often. I'd heard that before. But now I realized that my investment didn't even include a word of thanks. Just silence and wiping. I'm not going to let them make me feel like a blank slate in their story anymore. That's not my place. It's not my role. I will make myself noticed. I thought for a long time that I would keep quiet. Honestly, I wanted to. I decided that I would just take a pause, close my eyes to their family idol, and quietly walk away. I wouldn't make demands or remind them that I could see everything. But something inside me wouldn't let me forget. I couldn't just be an observer. I couldn't just leave it at that and walk away.
Not now.
I was a part of this house. I was part of their history, even if they wouldn't admit it. They continued to build their reality, in which I was in the background, like a decoration, an unimportant element that could simply be removed. But what if I decided to get back into the story myself? Back into their picture? Not as a helpless side player, but as a major actor. The day I made that decision, everything in me quietly clicked. No drama.
No cry.
It wasn't a rebellion. It was a quiet comeback. I walked to the door, a little nervous, but with a determination that was stronger still. I chose not to ask for a seat at their table. I chose to occupy it. Silently. I arrived. I got out of the car without even looking back. I knew I wasn't expected. I knew no one would come to meet me, welcome me with open arms. But I didn't care. I came, and that was enough. I sat at the table, not moving, not making any extra movements, as if suddenly I had been invisible all these years, and now I was here. It's all for a reason. They thought that if I didn't speak out loud, if I kept everything in the shadows, I'd just shut up. I clenched my hands on the edge of the table. The silence stretched like a taut string, and in that moment I couldn't hold anything in. Everything that was on my mind came out. I know what you were thinking. That I didn't notice. That I didn't understand.
But I saw everything.
And I kept quiet, because I was told it was for the best. I smoothed the edges while you built your fairy tale. Silent when I was forgotten, when all the important moments passed me by, and I just sat in the corner, waiting to be told. You're part of it too. I didn't demand, I didn't ask. But honestly, I can't hold it in anymore. You pushed me out the door, you thought I was unimportant. And I believed that. But it's clear to me now. Lucy, let's not do this now, Meg said. I was silent, but I didn't let go of her gaze.
No apologetic smile. No pity.
Just one thing. I will no longer allow you to see me as the most convenient.
No, and my.
It's not just that we won't. I've just seen the way you all build this picture. How you all pretend that family is sacred. And I was part of that family. But only when it suited you. I was creating a holiday for Grandma, organizing everything about our cohesive life, and you didn't even notice when I disappeared from your eyes. You didn't notice when I took all my efforts back, when I stopped being your tool. And you weren't expecting that, were you? You thought I'd sit quietly, pretend everything was the same, that I'd be satisfied that you at least invited me to dinner. But you were wrong. This isn't about dinner. It's about how you used me, and now you're trying to cut me out. Lucy, you don't understand how it's. All I understand is that I can't be a part of your act anymore. I can't watch you rewrite history and take credit for it. Remember who organized all of this, who didn't complain and paused their lives to maintain that family image. It was me. And I'm tired. No longer silent. In that moment, I realized it wasn't just resentment. It was an act of release. I wasn't going to waste another minute making excuses for them. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I had already accepted that none of them would understand. I was just ready to show that I wasn't their shadow. And when I put the proof printout on the table, they understood. It wasn't a scream. It was a truth that needed no embellishments or excuses. I was no longer hiding my role. I just made it visible. I looked at them all, at their faces, which now looked uncertain, as if asking what to do with this new poison in the atmosphere. And I didn't say anything more. Just sat down and continued to look into their eyes until they realized all their attempts to blot me out were nothing more than empty words. I was here, and now they have to live with that. I sat in the silence, but it wasn't cozy. Not like before, when I'd found peace in this house, when every silence sounded like encouragement. It was different now. Now that silence seemed to creep up, like the hateful fall chill that creeps in through the cracks in the old windows. I was still sitting at this table, but I was no longer here as a guest. I was here as a witness, as someone who could no longer just observe, silently accept what was being forced upon him. I could see them all trying to restore the familiar pattern. Aunt Meg sat across from me, but she didn't say a word. She just stared at me in evaluating silence, as if she were looking for an answer in my shadow. And it was strange. I'd thought all along that they were the ones looking for my approving gaze, my acquiescence. And now that I didn't approve, they all fell silent. Emma tried to speak, but her voice shook. And what was strange was that she wasn't trying to justify herself. She was struggling to find the words, as if this was her last chance to say something that would put her back in her usual role. But I didn't believe in her words anymore. Everything had been said, and the silence that settled between us was heavy. I had no anger, no fear. Just the realization that now I no longer had to fight for the right to be heard. All I had done was tell the truth. And they heard it, even if they were trying to silence it. I sat back in my chair and looked out the window. It was raining outside. It was quiet, like this whole situation, like our silence. And in that rain, I could feel my strength growing. I was no longer needy, no longer someone who had to make excuses. I became me, not looking at other people's expectations. The room was quiet, but I could feel everything inside me stirring, something beginning to move, as if I were on the threshold of something new. And though there was still an awkward silence in the house, I was no longer afraid of it. I knew that when they spoke, I would be ready. I wasn't going back into the shadows. I was already there in the light, and that was enough. I sat at this table, the same one where I had tried so many times to fit in, where for years I tried to belong just so they would finally notice me. And now I'm back, but not to ask, not to return. I'm here because I won't sit quietly in the corner anymore. I won't pretend the crumbs are enough. I will build my own table, on my own terms. I remember the day I first left, that moment when I realized they weren't going to change. They weren't willing to listen. They never wanted me as an equal. They needed me as a tool, something to keep the illusion of a perfect family alive. But I can't take it anymore. I won't try. I won't wait for their approval. I remember the weight I felt when I closed the door, and later, how light it felt to be rid of it. I opened my eyes and saw my life clearly for the first time. There was no place for me in their story anymore. And I didn't need to earn a seat at their table. I would make my own. A place for those who see me, who understand me, who value me not for what I can do to make them comfortable, but for who I am. They can keep living in their polished, perfect world. I'll live in mine. I have my own place now, one I built with my own hands, with my own choices. with my life. And I'm not asking for permission. All I need is to be real, to be me. I turned and walked away. Not sideways.
Not backward. Forward.
I won't spend another second filling the emptiness of people who never saw me. I have a home, a space, a seat at a table I built. And it wasn't an act of despair. It was my celebration. I never needed their recognition. I was already free. And when I got home, I didn't just walk into an apartment. I came home to myself. And there was a new desk. My place. My right. If this story moves something in you, follow this channel. Here we share raw, real, unforgettable stories about freedom, healing, and reclaiming your power.